Now, I'll start with our feature on the show today as we focus on the energy sector. Now, according to some quarters, there are indications that the much anticipated gains for Nigeria when the petroleum industry bill is eventually passed into law may be stalled over high cost of doing business in the nation's oil and gas sector. However, international oil companies warn that the bill may reduce Nigeria's global competitiveness if passed in its current form, as it will not meet the government's objective of making Nigeria the leading destination for oil and gas investment. And recent scarcity of investment, only about $3 billion out of $70 billion, this representing about 4% in Africa, will continue. This lack of competitiveness is also caused in part by the high cost of doing business in Nigeria, with overall project cost and operation cost being 69% and 42% higher respectively than the global average across board. Now, joining me in our Lagos studio to discuss this and much more, I have energy analyst Olusegun Okwade. Good to have you in the breakfast today.
Good morning, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So the high cost of doing business, especially within the oil and gas sector, is one of the biggest challenges we have at this point in time. And the conversations we have going around globally is to look at intensifying cost-cutting measures. Now, the federal government expects that we are going to see the average production of oil price in template, say, at about $10 per barrel by the end of the year 2021. Do you think this is way too optimistic? We are expecting all of this on the sidelines of the passage of the PIB.
Yeah, in as much as we are very optimistic of the passage of the PIB as promised by the end of the first quarter, there are certain things that are more of it, like you read in your header, that has to do with the operating cost of petroleum in the energy sector. We've observed that the basic infrastructure needed are not there. And when you talk about operation holistically, you look at the security, you look at the logistics, you look at the personnel themselves, you look at the infrastructure that they need to put in place to make these things work. Take, for example, it's just here in Africa that you need to go and get security personnel that follows people, you know, the personnel that go to grid or other places because of the insecurity, because several people will be kidnapped. And if you factor that into the cost of production, being a financial person too, you discover that definitely will skyrocket cost of production. Logistics, how do we put those things together? Some of the things that we need to harness to make the production easy, those things are not there. Some of those things are dilapidated. They are not state of the art that can enhance quality delivery. So how do you expect the companies to solve it? So even with the passage of the PIB, like they said, like the companies are saying, it's going to be, it's not something that will enhance the expectation of the people as we expect it to be if certain things are not put in place. One, security must be addressed. The logistics around the production of some of this oil must be put in place to make sure that the dilapidated and out-of-state equipment that we have are changed to a more technological way that can enhance delivery of this thing. You see, we are blessed. And considering the fact that people will say that oil is leaving, several people are not going into it, there are other alternatives, fine. But for the African setting, what we still have is that we need this oil at every sector. So if government make conscious effort of making some of those things and bringing down the cost of production, like they're saying $10 by the end of it, we have all, like you and I know, in the last 15 months, our refinery have been shut down and we are not producing anything. So how do we go about that? We know it's not just producing the petrol, the diesel and other things. The byproduct has other implications on other sectors of the economy. So if we have some of these functional, we will definitely see a situation where we have good growth, even in our economy, because the only major revenue of the country is still oil. Even while we are saying we are diversifying to other areas, oil still play a major role. So the conscious effort, the will on the part of the government to make sure that some of the things that are needed to be put in place are done, then definitely we have a very good growth in terms of our economy.
And we also have to look at the area of also processing, refining of our oil. At the end of the day, we cannot just be producing oil in its raw form and then export it and then expect to now import once again the refined product. But do you think now, at this point in time, we would, meeting the forecast of what so many analysts are saying, and then the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources saying that we would likely see the PIB passed into law by the first quarter, the end of the first quarter of this year. We've had quite a lull in terms of the passage. Some would say, well, let's just remain cautiously optimistic. Others say, well, recommendations and perfecting that document to have a stronger implementation is the way to go. So let's just be patient enough. Do you think we can achieve this within the first quarter of this year at the pace we are going?
Yeah, achieving it, I'm very optimistic. But one thing we have to look at it, this PIB has been...
Achieving it with the focus on implementation and having the dividends from the short to medium and long term.
You see, really not too optimistic, because if those things are passed to law, you discover that we are working with a document that was prepared 10 years ago. And what is the state of things as we speak? There's a gap. So even if we pass it to law and you want to get the dividend, there are certain things that you must close up.
Well, that's why there are recommendations and new inputs, don't you think?
That's why we are saying it. But considering the fact that let's even the first one, like we have in the Finance Act, those days that it was delayed, let's even have the passage of the ones that would add, then we can look at bringing on board maybe annually or every biannually some of the input that we can quickly use to inject it. So the first thing is that let's quickly push out this. But coming with the passage of this one by the end of first quarter, we may not have the expected dividend that is expected because there's a wide gap. This thing has been lingering for several years, and there are several developments that have actually come in the sector that we need to key into for us to do so. But what we're saying is let the passage be done for now, then we can look for way to inject some of the new development to make some of those things done. Going by the other aspect of saying refinery is the way to go. And we've always said the will on the part of the government. You see, if the government cannot carry out some of these things, I will use a practical example of how some of this thing goes. The other time somebody, you know, a company was maintaining the car for a staff, and all you get all the time is that the car breaks down day by day. And at a particular time, that same vehicle was given out to someone else who is in need of it. What are we saying? Government keep complaining of overhauling, of maintenance here and there, and we are not getting the maximum output. Can we give this to, there are certain people that are desperate about managing business, who are individual. Can you give it to them and let's see what transformation they can make out of this? Because it's unheard of that we have the raw materials, the crude oil, and all we do is to give it out to people and bring in the finished product, allowing those other countries to make use of the byproduct to develop their places. So that is why we are advocating, not just holding on to Dangote alone to do, even that so-called dilapidated and outdated refinery that we are talking about, give it to the ends of certain individuals who are business-oriented. One thing we've seen is that governments does not have the foreknowledge of handling business. Give it to the hands of people that are business-oriented. They will rejig it.
If you say government does not necessarily have, they have teams to work with. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, as well as the DPR and a whole lot more, they work in teams. They're not working as silos. So these are people who ought to be better informed,
those people, what we expect from them is to give policies and direction. Not getting involved in the operations.
Okay.
Because they've not given us the value that is expected.
Let's now talk about operational excellence as part of the way to go in terms of still maintaining the oil sector, and then we're also looking at improving on the gas sector as well in just less than a minute, because I'm being told we are, for the lack of time. Now, in terms of automation and digitalizing our processes from well and reservoir operations, oil wells, and a whole lot more, supply chains, logistics, and all of that, we have to just automate. Transfer of knowledge is key. Investment in technology is key.
Yeah, we have the human resources. What we lack is the will on the part of the government to get some of these things done. And we have said it times with that number. We are like 20 years behind the span if you compare yourself to other countries who are in OPEC and some other things. So what we need from the government is the political will and getting the right set of people managing and administering this particular thing for us to get the dividend of it. And with it, we'll be there. I keep saying this, Nigeria is blessed with every resource. We just need the serious-minded people that can administer this correctly and the will on the part of the government to give the right policy. And we'll be there.
Thank you very much for your time. Shason Okwade would also be keeping our eyes fixed on the decisions of OPEC as well going further into the year 2021. We just have to put our best foot forward and not just stay back in the dark.
Thank you very much
once
for
again.
having me, David.